Attorney General Jeff Sessions spoke about the case against James Alex Fields Jr., who ran over counter-protesters with his car in Charlottesville. So let's see what they're looking at charging him with.
State charges have already been filed. How close would you say the federal government is to bringing charges?
Well, we'll work with them. It doesn't have to be done immediately, but we'll be working with the state to see how they would proceed with their charges. Once, and we could bring charges whenever the investigation justifies that. But I don't think we should just feel like we've got to do it in a matter of hours or days. This investigation is ongoing around the country. It could be 245, a civil rights violation, Title 18, 245, or 249, which is a hate crime, and there might be other charges that could be brought. So we are working it intensely. Is it on the assumption that we may well want to prosecute it under one of those theories or whatever theory that we would find. We're also working with the state and local authorities who clearly have jurisdiction too, and often they're the ones that have the best charge. So our people will be working with state and local in a collaborative way, and they will decide together, these professionals that have been working these civil rights cases for decades, they'll be working with them to see what the best charge will be, and you can be sure it will be fully investigated and thoroughly prosecuted.
So there's a couple interesting things there. Now, a few people are pointing out, he said, well, we're really in no rush here. And they're using that as evidence of like, oh, Jeff Sessions, we all knew he had far-right white nationalist sympathies, to put it kindly. So this is him, like a wink and a nod, like, yeah, we're not going to rush here. We're going to take our time. We're in no rush to do this. People are interpreting that as him saying, like, basically, like, yeah, we're going easy here. I don't think that's what he meant with that. I think that's an unfair interpretation. When he says don't rush it, my perception of it is that's him saying, we're not going to rush it, we're going to try to get it right. So we're not going to like try to rush it into court and then lose or something. We're going to take our time and make sure we get everything right and then act accordingly and get this person locked up. That was my interpretation of it. I could be wrong, but I think that's what he was getting at there. But there is a part that really pisses me off, which is, notice the first few things that come to his mind when he talks about the kind of charges that are going to be brought against him. He goes to, it could be like a civil rights violation or perhaps a hate crime. What's missing? What's missing there, Jeff, from your breakdown here? Terrorism. There has never been a more clear-cut case of white supremacist terrorism. You're at a march, you're at a protest where one side, because this was the next day, this wasn't even the night before with the torches and stuff. This was the next day when there were literally people there wearing KKK outfits, people flying Nazi flags, people holding signs that say Jews are the children of Satan. I mean, this was, whoa, bunch of people doing the Nazi salute, and then you had the counter-protesters peacefully marching down the street. And this guy got in his car and ran over counter-protesters. That is a literal ISIS tactic. Running people over with cars on purpose is something that we've first seen in modern times with ISIS. And Muslim fundamentalist terrorists have done that all over the place. So here you have a radical white supremacist doing that, doing violence against civilians for a political reason. Definition of terrorism: violence against civilians for political or religious reason. Terrorism. So there's a textbook definition of terrorism, and weird! Jeff Sessions doesn't have that as one of the first things in his mind. This civil rights violation. Oh, a civil rights violation! Oh! He makes it sound like somebody, went to the voting booth and they said, you can't vote because we didn't see your ID. And then they let the next person vote without them showing an ID. That's what he makes it a civil rights violation. Or it's a hate crime. It's a hate crime. No. This is terrorism. So if you're not going to say, hey, this is terrorism, and you're not going to charge him with terrorism, then why are we even pretending at this point? Why not just make it under law hey, terrorism is when a Muslim does an act of violence. That's terrorism. That's the new definition of terrorism. Violence done for political or religious reason when done by Muslims. Because again, if you can't call this terrorism, and that's not the first thing that comes to your mind when talking about the charges to be brought against that, something's wrong. Something's wrong. You do have a double standard. You don't even realize it. Now, that's not me saying, hey, Jeff Sessions was in favor of this guy doing what he did. No. That's way too harsh a claim, and I don't think he's in favor of it. But I think that it clearly shows the double standard in his thinking where, you know, if it's a white guy that does it, it's kind of like a loner. You know, it's not tied to a broader movement, or it's not a shared ideology that a lot of people in the country have that they kind of expressed this past fucking week. It's just a loner, and he had mental illness. He's got mental illness, of course. But when it's a Muslim terrorist, it's, oh my God, global jihad. They're all tied together with the same ideology, and there's so many people that are in agreement with this guy, and this is terrorism, and we have to call it by its name. I think that's the other part of this that annoys me, is that how much the people on the right stress say its name, radical Islamic terrorism, say its name. Why don't you say its name? And to be clear, I agree with them, and I've done segments on this show where I say, you don't need to tiptoe and not say it, like when Obama was like, violent extremism. You don't need to do that. You could say, yes, this is an instance of radical Islamic terrorism. So that's not like a bigoted thing to say. It's an accurate thing to say in a circumstance where it actually is a radical Muslim doing a terrorist act in the name of Islamic ideology. But by the same token, that's what this is for white supremacists. This is a radical white supremacist terror attack. And not only does he not say radical white supremacists, he doesn't even say terrorism. He doesn't even bring terrorism up as one of the potential charges. So there is a double standard. It's a clear double standard. And if these guys are going to be the ones who go out there, Trump did it too, say the words radical Islamic terrorism, then they should be the first ones to go out there and say radical white supremacist terrorism. But they don't do it. What Trump does is he goes out there and he goes, both sides, many sides have bad people, many sides have good people. What am I going to do? Has Trump ever said that in the context of, I don't know, an ISIS guy running people over? Okay, guys, look, sure, an ISIS guy ran people over, but number one, don't call it radical Islamic terrorism, and number two, there's many good people on their side, many good people on our side. There's good people everywhere. Sure, Muslim fundamentalists. There are many good Muslim fundamentalists. No, there's not. No, there's not. There's not many good Muslim fundamentalists. There's not many good white supremacists. Those concepts are bad. Okay, those are bad things. You can say, oh, the problem isn't all right-wingers, of course. The problem isn't all Muslims, of course. But is the problem white supremacists and Muslim fundamentalists? Or white supremacists and Salafists, Wahhabists? Yes! Yes! But in one case, radical Islamic terrorism, say the words, we cannot deny this evil, we gotta call it out by its name. Then when it's radical white supremacist terrorism, shh, don't say that, we're not allowed to.